Hey guys, Jamie from Audiojack here. I am doing a quick tutorial on some basic mixing techniques. So whatever you've got going on in your project, you can apply these techniques and it'll clean it up and give you a good clean sounding mix that you can then make louder to use as a demo or to play out. Okay, let's get into it. So here are the groups that we're going to categorize everything into. So you can see we've got kick drums, bass, leads, pads, vocals and effects, and lots of different things that go in there. So what we're going to do is group all of the sounds into these and then process them individually just to take away sort of unwanted frequencies, and this way we'll be able to push everything up against the master and get a good clean mix that's loud enough to play out or send as a demo. Okay, so we've got a simple deep house track here. Just play it so you can hear how it sounds. So the first thing that we need to do is organize all the sounds into the groups. So let's take it in order. The first thing was the kicks. Let's identify any kicks in there. So I've just got one here, this one. So let's move that up to the top. So we're going to group everything, even if there's only one of them. And the reason we do this is because if you've got a different fader setting, a different volume setting on the individual track, then when you group it, that fader setting on the group will be set to 0, which is important for the way that we're going to gain stage this. And I'll explain more as we do it. So I'm going to group that, rename that kick group, and then color it. And assign the color to the clips. Okay, next I'm going to find all the drums. So there, here, here, and here. Move them up. Group. Rename and color. The next is going to be bass. So I've just got one bass track. Next is the leads. I've got 2 lead tracks. Colour those blue. Pads next. And ARPs can go with the pads as well if you've got any ARPs. Then vocals. And then finally the effects. Okay, so now that we've got those groups, let's go ahead and do some processing. So the first thing we need to do is just put a limiter onto the master track with a ceiling of 0 dB just to stop any clipping. Next, let's go to the kick group. And you can EQ a kick, but I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to focus on the real basics. So we're just going to put a limiter on there just to get the volume levels right. We're going to set the ceiling to -2. Now, if you stick to these limits, it's going to give a sort of balanced and sort of as loud as a mix as you can get, really, against a sort of 0 dB master. So let's solo the kick and listen to a section so we can check out how it's performing against this limiter. So we need to push this up louder now so we get some limiting here. and you can get as much extra volume out of it by pushing it against that limiter before the character changes, so it doesn't sound how you want to. So if I push it really high, you get that distortion effect. If you want that, great. I don't. Something like that sounds fine to me. Okay, let's move on to the drums. So the next thing that we need to do here, we're not going to put a limiter on first, we are going to put an EQ on. And we're going to get rid of unwanted frequencies. So if I solo the drums and just loop this section here where there's quite a lot going on with the drums. All these low frequencies down here, that's the kind of noise that you get from recorded sounds. And we don't need them in this mix. If I isolate them, you can hear there's really nothing there, but that is going to take up a lot of headroom with the volume. If you look at where it's peaking at on the master, we're getting all of that volume with not really any sounds. We don't need any of that. So if we get rid of that bottom 100 hertz there, then that's getting rid of all that unwanted low frequency noise. So then we'll put a limiter on there to get the volume correct. So we can set this to -1 because it's all the drums grouped together, so you can afford for it to be a little bit louder than the kick. And then we're going to push these higher. Again, it's a compromise between not changing the character of the sound and getting it loud enough. So the -1 limit means you can't get it too loud, so it's going to distort the master once all of the elements are in there, but then you can have it anything under that. So, you know, if I push it hard against it, it's going to sound weird again. Or you can turn it down as much as you want depending on, you know, how you like the balance. But it's kind of a safety net to make sure you can't go too loud. So something like that sounds good to me. Let's move on to the bass. So again, I'm not going to touch the EQ on the bass. I'm just going to limit it, and -8 is a good starting point for a bass in a house track. If it's like a sine wave sub bass, then you can go a little bit lower than this, and maybe you would go for -10 or -12. But for a good starting point for general basses, -8 works well. So again, if you push it up too hard, you're going to get distortion. So something like that sounds fine. It's got a little bit of bite to it, but it's not changed the character too much. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to need to do is some side chaining. So I'm going to use a standard compressor. So turn sidechain on, choose the kick, attack all the way down to 0, release is fine at 30, make sure it's on peak. Open up this setting so you can see it a bit better. So we're getting a -6 dB reduction there. We don't really need it that much. We can even go down to about 4. And that'll be enough to have a clean mix. Okay, let's move on to the leads now. So we can copy these two things here because we're going to need them here as well. And we're also going to copy this EQ8, which has reduced, got rid of the low end. So paste that first. So it's always this same order. You want EQ, limiter, sidechain. So we've got rid of this low 100 hertz here. Then the ceiling for leads is going to be -8 as well for your sort of main sounds in the track, the main lead sounds. And then this sidechain, we don't really need to sidechain anything on these sounds because we've already gotten rid of the low end, but a gentle sidechain on other sounds in the track will give it a little bit of bounce and groove with the track and help it glue into the track a little bit as well. We don't need to do that on drums at all because you'll lose the transients of the drum hits that are hitting at the same time as the kick. So everything else you can have a little bit of a sidechain. So let's just solo these two. So let's pull this back a little bit because it's a little bit loud. And then the sidechain can be a little bit more subtle. Something like that. Okay, so we can copy all of these and paste them across onto the pads group. The sidechain's fine as it was, the EQ's fine as it is, but the ceiling, we're going to move down to -12 because pads are more kind of supporting instruments and don't need to be as prominent in the mix. So let's find a part of the track where the pads are the loudest, where they've doubled up there. Okay, so we can push it up a little bit. If you push pads up too much, they immediately get distorted, so just be aware of that. Yeah, so you can hear it struggling there. So something like that's fine. And then let's just check it out against the kick to hear the side chaining. Oh no. There we go. Okay. Next up, the vocals. So we'll just paste those devices again. Pick a part where the vocals are both playing.
Time. Come on.
Okay, so you're getting a little bit of a reduction there. You can afford to push vocals a little bit harder if you want to.
Come on.
So the rule here is lead vocals, you can set to about -8 on a house track. If you're doing pop stuff or anything like that, you can go a little bit louder, -6 or -4. But -8 is a good starting point for a house track. And then if you've got backing vocals as well, you can have them at -12. These aren't really lead vocals, they're more kind of vocal chops. So, you know, there isn't a sort of hard and fast rule for where the volume should be on here. But we'll set the limit to -8, and then if they need turning down, you can turn them down. Okay, finally, let's move on to the effects. So because effects are a lot of white noisy kind of sounds like downlifters and crashes and risers and things like that, they usually are quite high frequency noises, and the higher frequency noise you're dealing with, the less volume you need for it to sound loud. So we can go to -12 on the ceiling for effects. So let's just listen to how these are performing.
Time.
We can probably go a little bit louder there. So even though you're getting a big reduction on there, because it's a short transient sound, you're not getting any distortion. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and have a listen all together. As you can see with this kind of, everything is zeroed here, you're just getting this gentle limiting on the master, and that should be ready now to render and either play out or send us a demo. Okay, I hope that was useful for you. Feel free to hit me up with any questions, and I'll see you next month with another video.